My name is Lewis. I'm 26 years old, and I've been sober for 2 years. Well, as far as like how bad addiction was for me personally, I mean, everybody has their own experience, like as far as how bad it can get, but it felt like as bad as it can get, like as the worst possible situation you can imagine. Um, well, as far as like me dying to addiction, I when I was in active addiction, I almost kind of wore it like some weird badge of honor. Like I can handle it better than other people could. I knew I was an addict. I didn't understand the medical definition of that, or any other kind of definition for that. But I knew I was addicted to. I couldn't live without using substances. As far as me thinking if I was gonna die or not, I honestly didn't care. It was one of those things where like, if this is my last time using, then that's that. I wasn't really scared of death. I definitely didn't want to die either, if that makes sense. Like, I would like to continue using drugs. I loved using drugs, but if it was my last time, I was okay with that too. Well, as far as like me thinking like I can get out of addiction, I figured I could master it, figure out the formula of like correct dosing, finding a job where it would allow me to use drugs without it hindering my ability to make money. I mean, with me, like I know for some people they lose jobs. Like I was able to maintain jobs somehow. So like I was deep in this delusion that like I can keep this going for a very long time. So when I decided to get sober, I literally, for whatever reason, I abandoned this for a moment. I abandoned this old way of thinking that I could figure this out. I could get out of this situation. When I was, entering treatment, I'm a people watcher, right? Like I observe my surroundings and I see what the successful people are doing and what the not like the people who aren't gonna make it. Like you can gauge that when you enter a room. Like for example, when someone was leaving treatment, they would the treatment center that I was in, the people that would work when someone was being discharged, right? They finished their 30 days or whatever the amount of time was. I would notice that the people that worked at the treatment center, they would ask them, "Hey, are you going to sober living? Do you do you have a sponsor or spiritual advisor or whatever it is for that person? Are you going to be getting some help once you leave here?" And I would, however they answer that question, and this is me like first week of treatment, and I'm watching them ask those questions, and I would notice the difference between someone who said, "Yeah, I'm going to be getting some help when I leave here. I'm going to get a sponsor, and I'm going to sober living." And I would look at the reaction of that person working at that treatment center, and it was always elation. They were proud of them, or whatever it was. And then on the other side, the flip side of that, I would see people like, "Nah, I think I'll be fine," and I would see like a look of disappointment, or like a deep sense of sadness, or like this unfortunate situation. You can see it on their face, and I was like, okay, let me figure out what they're talking, because I didn't even know what they were talking about. What a sponsor, like this was all like a completely different language for me. So when we were going to small group, this language just kept coming about. I'm like, what is this? What is the sponsor? What is this fellowship? And I was like, okay, I know what the successful people are, what I perceive to be the successful people were doing. So I'm like, let me get to that. And that completely shattered my old way of thinking. Normally I'm like, I know what I need to do. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. I mean, today I call it a higher power revealing a situation to me. But at the time, I just don't know why I was not naturally, I was gravitating towards something that wasn't in my nature. It was this most bizarre thing. I just can't describe it. And that's why today I just describe it as a higher power or God revealing some situation that I had to take advantage of in that moment. So when I decided to follow this protocol that I uncovered, I was honestly intrigued. It was really bizarre to me. My perception of 12 steps was, like what I saw on movies and TV, old dudes sitting in a circle talking about their feelings, and smoking cigarettes, coffee, donuts, whatever. But I was like, all right, let's see what this is about, right? And so I just did that. That's the most bizarre part about this thing. I don't blindly try to follow this set of rules or this protocol that I viewed. I'm very like analytical in that sense. I'm this weird people watcher, and I try to measure the room and see what people are doing. And so when I decided to follow this way of life, or this protocol, that's what I called it back then, or that's how I thought about it. I just went and did it, right? So like first, they used to bring meetings into that treatment center. First guy that was in there, it's actually two men. They both ended up becoming my sponsors in different phases of my recovery. The guy that I chose that night, his name is Anthony. He had a New York Yankees hat on, and I'm like, I'm from New York. That guy's gonna be my sponsor. It was as simple as that. A common thing that like now in hindsight, I know a lot of people like, they like to, sponsor shop and figure things out. It was very simple for me. I'm like, that guy seems cool. He's from New York. I'll take this guy for a spin. I went up to him. I said, hey man, I need a sponsor. He gave me his phone number. He told me, call me. And so I did that. I started the steps, and some of this too was to get like a therapist off my back, where they're like, hey, did you get the sponsor? Are you doing the steps? And I can like, yes, check all those boxes off. But like I said, like I was just testing it out. I just wanted to see like what this was all about. It was more coming from like a place of like just being inquisitive about it, like just trying to figure out what this is all about. I didn't in any way think it was going to actually work at all. Taking the suggestions from my sponsor, it took a lot of pressure off me. That's what it felt like at first, because I had a person where they were essentially, in early recovery especially, they're essentially making most of my decisions for me. They're telling me to go to this meeting at this time, call them every day. And like I said earlier, like this is out of my nature to like actually follow through with any of this. Like I'm a great starter, terrible finisher. I never finish anything I start. But I just did it. And when I started realizing that it was working, was that like over time, I just didn't think about using, which was like a really weird concept. Like I went from a lifestyle of waking up with, like a quarter of a bottle of alcohol left. I'm like, cool, this will be my morning drink. I got to go to the grocery store at like 9 a.m. Who does that? And re-up. But like now I'm in a sober living, and I wake up and I'm doing my chores, and whatever I'm doing, my routine is changing. And over time, it just became habit. Like that's honestly what this is. It's habit forming. It's a habit forming way of life. Life for me today, my problems are completely different today. Some would describe them as first world problems. I can virtually do what I want. I have money in savings. I can take off work and not worry about covering certain things as far as bills or financial commitments. I can call my parents like 5 minutes before I get off work, like, hey, can I come over? And they're like, yeah, sure, come over for dinner. Sure, I have a regimented schedule of going to work, and I have like a side project at home, but like on the free time, I can virtually do whatever I want. I have a car. If I want to be spontaneous and decide to take my weekend wherever the wind blows me, I can just do it. Like I just didn't live a life like that before. Before, my life was run like I had a special amount of money allocated for drugs and alcohol, and then I had to work around that. And now I can do whatever I want, and I can work around all of my other life responsibilities that used to seem like chores. Like going to work used to be a chore. Like, okay, I have to, make sure I'm not too loaded, or how do I get through this day? I'm so fucked up right now. How am I going to get through work today? These things aren't issues today. It's weird. It's kind of bizarre, honestly, now that I think about it. I would say the last time I like seriously considered taking a drink, I was probably like about 6-7 months sober, and I don't know, I was like planning a relapse. But here's the thing, these habit forming things that I'm talking about, like I just naturally picked up the phone and called someone to tell them about my great idea of of taking off 4 days from work to make sure I have enough time to really enjoy this relapse, and whatever happens after happens. I'm weird and methodical like that. Like I don't just like, I don't know, like I'm sure I'm capable of just going for it, but like I want to enjoy it. That's how I am. And but like I said, as far as like the habit forming things, I was told to me by someone, this gentleman named Jeff, who I did IOP with. He challenged me to call at least it was a lot more. It was like 11 alcoholics a day, but today I do it about 3. And when I constantly talk to these people, and the main objective when I call these people is that I try to see like how their day is going. And if they ask me about what's going on with me, sure, I'll answer it. But like I'm trying to like get outside of like what is going on with me. But that's like an insurance policy, because if I build up this habit of constantly calling people, seeing how they're doing, when I'm in a pretty bad situation, that phone is not as heavy anymore. I can pick up and call someone. It's not a big deal. I get over that insecurity of annoying someone. Sometimes I talk too much. Sometimes I text too much. Sometimes, I get butthurt when I'm trying to like talk to Essel or something, and then he doesn't respond. I'm like this asshole. But I know that he'll be there if I'm really in trouble, because like most of the time I don't know, I just like the sound of my voice, or I just want to like get his attention or whatever, and I'm not really in a bad situation. But deep down I know, like if I was in a fucked situation, like he would drop whatever he was doing and he would help me. So if you've ever thought about like you wanted to stop, or you're considering getting sober, you have to do things that you've never done before. Because if you're anything like me, you've been living a life, by doing what you wanted to do. That sometimes I explain this to people that I talk to, that like when you were out there getting loaded, or just living in that self-will, I view it as like this debt you're running up. It's this huge debt that think of it as like a credit card that you're racking up this debt of misery and pain and suffering. And so there comes a point, like, and I hate to break it to you, like you have to pay up. You have to do shit you don't want to do. You have to do things that you've never done before. You have to put yourself in very uncomfortable situations. It's not like you start off with a clean slate and then it's all uphill from there. That's not the case. I'm sorry if that's what you thought it was, but you have to pay back, whether it's financially. And also another thing is, some things you'll never be able to pay back, and you have to live with that. And I don't want to scare people off by saying that, but I also, I'm giving you this full disclaimer as far as like what you need to do in order to not only get sober, but live a happy and healthy life in all facets of your life, whether it's professionally, romantically, with your family, friends. You can mend all those relationships. Some of them you might not be able to, but you can learn to live with it and not turn to drugs and alcohol as a way of escaping all that.